All right, guys, welcome to day one of the 5-day Kickstarter challenge. So today, I'm just gonna let you guys know it's probably gonna be the most intense of the 5 days because we are going to be looking all over the financials and we're gonna be comparing what you need to make to what you realistically can expect to make. And you know, we wanna make sure that those two numbers are in the ballpark of each other at least. So I'm actually gonna be walking you through my previous Kickstarter campaigns. This is gonna be a lot of fun and I'm really looking forward to it. So if you guys are ready to dive in and learn all about the financial side of Kickstarter, then go ahead and grab a cup, cozy up, and let's get to writing. All right, once again, we are joined by our lovely meowing kittens. Maple seems to be leading the charge, so she's the one you're gonna get to see the most. See the little maple leaf on her head? That's how she got her name. She's pretty darn cute. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and log into my Kickstarter here. My account. I have had quite a few projects you're gonna see here. So these are all the projects that I ran. So Secrets of the Tally made, oh, it was just under 7,000. I couldn't remember if it was just under or just over. Catching Epics was book 2, made 67. There was a slight drop between book 1 and book 2 because I think I just pretty much marketed to my exact same fan base in book 2 after book 1. I didn't do a lot of expansion. Book 3 is when I got really serious about building that Instagram account, about starting to build a little bit of a mailing list. That's when we made really close to 10,000. Book 4, that was the Golden Goose. We made 17 grand on that one. And that was, I'm gonna just go ahead and tell you guys, that's because that's when I had a really strong mailing list going at that point. The next one was Machu and the Great Dragon Escape. So that was my kids' book, the very first one that's on the shelf behind me there. And this is what we are going to be running a sequel to. So this is kind of our baseline of we made 11,000 pretty much on the first Machu campaign. So hopefully, the next one is just going to grow from that. And one of the reasons for that is because when you run the campaign for the second book, a lot of times you can sell package deals that have the first and the second together. So then you can reach people, maybe they forgot to do your last Kickstarter. Now they can buy 2 books at once. Or somebody who did your last Kickstarter loved the first book, so now they're getting a copy for their friends while they're getting a copy of book 2 for themselves. That's one of the reasons that we see the sequels grow really well after the first book. And then the very last one was my Prince Avalask prequel, and this was actually this did way better than I expected, you guys. And that is just purely because we launched it during COVID times, like kind of near the beginning of COVID when everything was just such a scramble and such a mess. And it was priced lower than book 4. So book 4, I think we were selling it at like 23 or 24 bucks a book, whereas Prince Avalask is a much thinner book, so we kind of scaled back on the price and sold it at 20 bucks a book. But actually, the amount of backers you'll see on book 4 was 331, and Prince Avalask had 324, so almost exactly the same number of people showed up. The only reason that it's a smaller amount in what we made overall is really just because it was priced a little bit lower. The ratio itself actually ended up the same. So before I go any further in breaking down the numbers behind each of these campaigns, which we are going to come back to these, and it's actually, I hope, going to be very, very informative for you guys. The other thing that I want to look at first is what are you going to need? Because the goal of today is to take a look at what do we need for printing versus what do we realistically think we can raise for printing. And so this is when I want you guys to pull out those worksheets that I gave you yesterday. And if you haven't downloaded those yet, go ahead and jump back to day 0 really quick, and that's going to have the link there where you can go and download those worksheets so you can follow along with us. The very first thing that you're going to want to do on this homework is you're figuring out how much you need. So we're going to be looking at the cost of production. I really want you guys, this is a day of research. So once you're done watching this video, absorbing everything that I've told you, I really want you guys to take a look at building your own Kickstarter and crunching these numbers and seeing if it's something that's for you. So cost of production, that is going to be everything, guys, from the cover art that you need. Look up what kind of cover art you like, see kind of what the ballpark estimate is on how much you're going to spend on it. If you guys are going to be paying for editing, which I do highly recommend, take a look at editors that you might want to work with, see how much it's going to cost to work with them. Editing is something that we offer here at Tally Inc. So if you want to check out our editing packages, you can always check out www.tallyinc.com and see our prices. But of course, you don't have to go with us for editing. There's many many editors out in the world, but take a look at who you think you might want to work with and budget for it. Because there are also different types of editing. You might want to go through several rounds of editing. So see what it's going to cost you. Now, if you decide you want somebody to do the formatting for you, you're going to want to factor in that cost. And with all of these things, I have recommendations for people who I work with. Again, tallyinc.com. And it's totally okay if you guys decide you're going to figure out the formatting yourselves. You don't want to pay anybody. You want to save that money for your marketing later. That's totally okay. You just put a 0 in that formatting column. But if you are really unsure about formatting and you want somebody to do it for you, I would take a look at what you're going to need to budget for that. And then the last thing, definitely not the least, is printing. What's it gonna cost you to print these books and get them out to everybody? And this is where you're gonna wanna shop around a little bit and take a look at different places that you can print with, different kinds of printing, get a little bit of a ballpark estimate in your head of what you're gonna need and put it in this budget so that we can figure out how much money you're gonna have to spend. Now, there's a couple of other things that I want you guys to think about. The cost of advertising is always a really big one. I'll just give you a quick ballpark of what I spend. I always try to spend 10% of what the overall goal is. So if I set a goal of $15,000 for my next Kickstarter, I'm gonna give myself a budget of $1,500 to do advertising to people to, get the word out that it's happening. And I know that I was really adamant in the last video that most of your sales are going to come from your own friends and your own family and your own fans. But it does actually a lot of times cost money to reach even your own people. Remember, I sent out those handwritten letters. The envelopes weren't free, the paper wasn't free, the ink wasn't free, the stamps weren't free. So you have to factor in, how are you going to get the word out to people, even if it is just your friends and family. If you're planning to reach them through Facebook posts, you might want to think about putting a little bit of money behind those posts to promote them so more of your friends and family do actually see them. So for me, I budget 10% of the overall goal. It's worked really well for me in the past. If you want to do a different number, totally fine. You just got to figure it out and write it down. And then fulfillment costs. Okay, guys, remember, after this whole Kickstarter thing is over, after everything has happened, you've got the cover done, you've got everything done, you've printed the books, everything's all great. Remember, you have to mail them out to people. So figure out what your game plan is for that. Are you going to drive them out to people's houses? I really hope that's not the case, but I'm not going to tell you you can't. Most likely, you're probably going to end up mailing them. So I want you guys to take a look at, what's it going to cost to do that. So remember, guys, that's going to mean you have to get boxes and probably return address labels and maybe some sort of sticky label so that you can print everybody's information, or maybe you handwrite everybody's information. And I do just want to throw out there, if you guys don't know about media mail, I'm just going to put it out there right now. It is the slowest form of mail in the US postal system, but it is so cheap and it is only for books. So if you are shipping out books, you can use the media mail price. Sending something like this is like $4, whereas if you were to use any other mail rate, it would be almost double. You pretty much save like around 50% by using that media mail rate. So just to give you guys a little bit of a ballpark estimate, I would budget somewhere around $4 per book to mail them out. If you're doing like bundles of 5 books at a time, you may be looking at like $7 or $8, but you do need to think about those fulfillment costs as part of your budget, because that actually does count towards the overall goal. So you can charge people shipping. So if you charge them for a $20 book and $4 for shipping, their pledge shows up as a $24 pledge towards your overall goal, which basically means if your goal is 5,000 and you hit 5,000, the money that you need to pay towards shipping those books out is included in that 5,000 already. You don't get extra for shipping. It's already in that overall amount that you've raised. And then very last on the list, we have taxes and fees. I would just budget for 10%, guys. So whatever you make, if it's $10,000, you're gonna lose 1,000 of it to taxes and fees. And before anybody freaks out and goes, oh my gosh, 10%, that's actually very, very, very low. So 5% of that is towards your processing fees. It's not exactly 5%, and it doesn't come out to exactly 10%, but it's very close. So the first 5% is to all of the processing fees. That is, the ability to take people's credit cards. You have to remember, merchant services, they're the ones who do that, and they take a little cut. They don't do that for free. And then the other one is 5% goes towards Kickstarter. And that is Kickstarter saying, hey, you know what? We made this possible, so we get a little cut too. We don't work for free either. So if you're looking at what it's gonna cost you to make this book overall, and you decide you need $7,000 to print a whole run of 1,000 books or whatever it is. If you have to have 7,000, you might have to set your goal closer to more like 10, because if you make 10,000, you're gonna lose 10% towards those taxes and fees. Now you're down to 9. You're gonna lose another 1,000 or so on shipping. Now you're down to 8, and you probably will have already spent 1,000 just getting the word out and getting the advertising done. And not everybody has to spend that much. I'm gonna go ahead and put a disclaimer on. I think I spend a little bit less and less on advertising each time as my base grows. Heck, you might be able to get away with it without spending anything on advertising, but that is what I spend, is 10%. So take it, leave it, just know that that's what I do. So that's kind of our first section, is how much do you need? This is like how we're figuring out what kind of goal we're gonna have to set. Our next section is figuring out a realistic idea of what we think we can make. So this is where I want you guys to look at the different ways you have of reaching people. So you're gonna see this section gets repeated a couple different times, where you have your platform. So this is where you're gonna put down, okay, I'm gonna reach people through Facebook or Instagram or my email list, or I'm gonna actually mail them a handwritten letter, or I'm gonna reach my TikTok audience. Whoever it is, you're gonna do a separate little section for each of these so that you can kind of figure out what to expect from each of these followings, because there's a lot of different factors that go into each one. The first one is gonna be the number of followers you have. So if you're looking at your Instagram account, obviously it matters how many people are actually following you. But the next thing I really want you guys to look at is the level of engagement for each of these different things, because things like Instagram and TikTok, I'm just gonna let you guys know, you could have a ton of followers on there. But Instagram and TikTok are a lot of looky-loos, where they're there for entertainment, to look at cool stuff. They are not big buyers. And I learned this from personal experience. And I'm gonna show you my numbers on that here in a second. So then with each of those platforms, I do actually want you guys to take an educated guess based on how many followers you have and how engaged you think they're going to be. How many of them do you think are actually going to come through and purchase from your Kickstarter campaign? We need to make at least some sort of educated guess. And then there's a little note section underneath where you can kind of say to yourself, here's why I think this. Like, list out your thought process, just so that you guys kind of have it in writing and you can see where your logic is coming from in thinking that you're going to get this many followers from this platform or this many from this place. So I want you guys to finish watching this video before you start filling this out, because I do have a couple more tips and tricks about narrowing down those numbers a little bit and trying to get them as accurate as we can. But I want to finish going through this homework first before we come back to that. So wait to start filling this out, start thinking on it, but wait until after this video to actually fill this out. Because the point of all of this is that we're trying to get a total estimated number of participants. So once we've looked through all the different platforms we're going to use and we get a little bit of a guess on how many people we think we might get from each one, we're going to put it all into one guess of how many people we think we're going to have total. Because the next thing that we need to figure out is how much money do we think we're going to make per person. And there's going to be a couple of things that go into figuring this out too. So with each Kickstarter campaign, I don't want to overwhelm you guys, but you basically give people different rewards tiers that they can sign up for. So tier 1, if this is your first book, guys, this is gonna be really easy. Tier 1 is buy 1 book. Tier 2, buy 2 books. Tier 3, buy 3 books. And you can make them sound fun, you know, like one's for me and one's for my husband, or we have a family of 3 and we need 3 books. You get to name each tier. You don't have to do that right now, but you just kind of want to start thinking about what are your different tiers going to be. Again, if this is your first book, this is going to be pretty easy. If you have a couple books out, this might be a little bit more complex, because you might want to offer one price for a box set versus a different price for 6 individual books. But really, this is not complicated. You just need to figure out what your different tiers are going to be and how you're going to price them. So for me, I would say tier 1, 1 book for $20. Tier 2, 2 books for $37. Tier 3, 3 books for $50. Make it so that the more books they decide to buy with you, the better off they are, so that they're incentivized to want to get more, because they're like, oh, I'm getting a really great deal if I get 5 books. And then once you have those all written out, this is another guess, but you want to make an educated guess at what you think the average sale number per person will be. And we're gonna go through and look through my numbers. I would put it right around tier 2 is probably gonna be a very rough ballpark estimate of your average sale number per person, because a lot of people are just going to buy one. Some people will go crazy and buy 5. In my experience, it works out that your average number is right around that tier 2 mark. So if you guys feel like you have some sort of insider information and you know your whole fan base is going to buy 5 books, then, you know, use your best judgment. But if you really have no idea, I would say stick right around that tier 2 amount that you're offering it for. Now, the next thing you need to do is multiply your average sale amount per person times the amount of people that you think you can get on board. And again, guys, these are super rough guesses, but you have to make them. We have to have some sort of educated guess to see what we think we can get, because otherwise, because if we calculate here that we really think we can raise $5,000, but you didn't do the calculations ahead of time and you just set a goal of 20,000, you may have missed out on what could have been a successful Kickstarter campaign because you weren't realistic in the goal setting. So this is really important. So this is a ballpark estimate, but let's take a look at, is it reasonably close to what we thought we needed? If the number that you need is pretty close to the number that you think you can raise, then it's probably time to do a Kickstarter, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But if they are miles apart, if you're looking at your different platforms and you only have 25 followers and you think you're going to maybe make 30 bucks per person, but then you're looking at what you need and what you really need is $15,000, it might not be the time for a Kickstarter yet. It might be the time to keep building your base until you do think you have enough that you can do a successful campaign. And you know what? It's okay to fail a Kickstarter. It's okay to put yourself out there and not have it be successful, but I want to set you guys up for a campaign that does what you expect it to do. But what I really want to avoid is having people jump onto Kickstarter with no idea what's going on, no idea how much it's going to raise, and then feeling really deflated when the campaign doesn't raise what they need because they had no idea what to expect. So we are going to jump onto my dashboard really quick, just because, guys, this is a great place for me to show you like how it all works and really kind of show you some of my breakdowns. So we're just gonna, you know what? We'll go to book 1. We're gonna start with book 1 and just see how it went. I give you guys a couple tips along the way about funding. So here's our funding summary. So this is one other thing that you guys need to know, is there will be something called dropped pledges. And so what that is sometimes people's cards get declined, or really that's the big one, their cards get declined. Something happens and you get a couple of days to reach out and give a couple nudges and be like, hey, I noticed your card got declined. No big deal, you can just go fix it. They just need new payment information. You do have a few days to try to clear things up. Kickstarter will try to clear things up, but you will lose some money in drop pledges. To be honest, 64 is a tiny, tiny amount. I'm pretty sure all my other campaigns had more drop pledges than that. So I didn't put it in the budgeting section because it's typically a fairly small amount, but it is something to be aware of. There will be drop pledges just when cards, it could be that they had fraud on their card, or the card just gets declined because it didn't like it. The next thing that we already talked about is the Kickstarter fee and the payment processing fee. Like I said, this one was a little less than 10%, but 10% is like your ballpark estimate. Yes, Maple, I know. So, you know, we lost 581, but we ended up getting 6,200, so a little less than 10, but that was the Kickstarter fees. The thing that I want to show you though, could you please calm yourself, is the dashboard. Okay, so this has got some amazing information in it. So, okay, remember you guys, I told you that your average pledge is gonna be right pretty close to your tier 2 number. That's what it is for me, because remember I was doing 1 book for 20, 2 was a little less than 40, but it's very, very close. Maple! Come here. Will this make you feel better? You wanna be up here? Is that better? Okay, we're good. All right, so the other thing that I wanna show you, well, I've got a lot of things. One of the big ones is this chart here. You're gonna see in your Kickstarter campaigns, your first couple of days are going to be wild, and then it's going to be this really slow rise for the rest of the month if you do a 30-day campaign. And then at the very end, you're going to get a couple more really good days. So I'd say it's usually like 3 awesome days and then a really slow climb, and then 3 awesome days at the end. And with that being said, I do want to set this expectation for you guys. I don't know where I heard this number, but it's turned out to be really true for me, is that you want to have at least 30% of your goal in the first day I would say 30% in the first day and 50% right around day 3. Is that right? Hang on, what was I at? So here's day 1, here's day 2, here's day 3. Yeah, I had a $5,000 goal. So by day 3, I was at $3,189. You want to have 30% on day 1 and 50% by day 3. And if you are not on track for that, you're in trouble. It doesn't mean it's not gonna work, but remember, day 3 is right about when this slow climb happens. And so you need to be at your 50% mark before the slow climb hits, because you're gonna be looking at just a marginal amount each day until you get to those last couple of days, and that's where your final push is at. So keep that in mind as you're organizing this campaign. Do you have enough friends and family and fans that you think you can get 30% of your goal on day 1? And then I did just want to toss out there real quick. I keep saying it's like a 95-5 split of people who are going to donate to the campaign are going to be 95% people who already know you and already love you and want to support you. And you might get like 5% from outside influences, or who you reach out to through your marketing campaigns, anything like that. Maybe 5% of what you make is going to come from just random people on Kickstarter finding you. These numbers look very different from that. It tells me that I did 66% and Kickstarter did 33%. I'm just going to kind of throw out there, it's a little bit misleading. Kickstarter takes credit for a lot of things that I don't know that I'd really give them credit for. For example, this search feature. So this breaks down all the different places that my traffic and my sales came from. And this search feature means somebody literally typed in Kickstarter.com, went to the search bar and looked for Secrets of the Tally by Haley Fuchs. And Kickstarter's like, that's ours. We did that. That's our sale. So, you know, yeah, I guess. I'm still counting that as my sale though. Actually, looking at this, they did, if this is true, this advanced discovery, this is something that they sent me. So actually, this is higher than I thought. They're saying 14% of my pledges came from this advanced discovery feature, which actually is people just browsing Kickstarter and stumbling across me. So actually with this campaign, it was definitely more like 85-15. Yeah, right around there. The rest of it is all gonna be you. So anyways, with my very first campaign, this is the part that I wanted to get to, is that Facebook was my #1 thing. Direct traffic, no referrer is like the people that I emailed and was like, Grandma, please come buy a book. Here's the link, just click on it. That's direct traffic with no referrer. And the reason that for me, you're gonna see, the reason search was so high was because a lot of people were coming off of those handwritten letters I told you guys about. I said, go to Kickstarter, search for me, and you'll see we made, you know, $1,100 off of people who just went to Kickstarter and searched for me, most likely because they had the address just at the bottom of that letter that I had sent them. So those were my top 3 sources of income on my very first campaign. Let's skip to book 3. Because I know that this one really shows something I want to tell you guys. Because, you know, book 3 is when I went and traveled the whole country by train. I was writing my book. I was meeting tons of people, making lots of connections. I was starting to go to shows and build an email list. And I say starting. Book 3, my big investment was Instagram. I really, really went hard on Instagram. And so, you know, you'll see here's the funding summary. The pledges were $9,700. When all is said and done, I got $8,808. So actually not a lot of drop pledges in this either. These are the payment fees. And then we want to go to dashboard. Okay. So again, remember, big day one. You want 30% raised on day 1. I think my goal was $7,500, so we were way over it for book 3. And then by day 3, you need to be at 50%. So yep, we hit both of them there. And then you got your slow climb and then a good last 3 days. That is pretty normal. But what's special about this one is that I told you I really invested hard into Instagram. So by the time this came around, I had 3 times more Instagram followers than I had Facebook followers. I think I had 700 followers on Facebook and 2,100 followers on Instagram. But you guys will see here, Facebook still made 3 times more money than Instagram did. Look at that. Instagram was responsible for 13%. Facebook was responsible for 35%. So this is where you just have to kind of think through who your audiences are. And Instagram audiences very often are not buyers, they are lookers. Whereas your Facebook audience is probably people who know you on a little bit more of a personal level. And so they care about you sometimes more than the book. We'll be honest, in your first couple campaigns, a lot of people are going to be buying them just to support you, and that's fantastic. But this is also when I was starting to build my mailing list. So I was starting to go to shows, collect emails, and so you'll see my mailing list, it actually surpassed Instagram, which is really where I had spent most of my time and effort, and Facebook killed all of them. So those are my top 3 on the book 3 campaign. Now I want to jump over to book 4. Okay, to Wear the Cloak. So this was my best campaign I ever had, although Prince Avlask really tied it if we're being fair. Whoops, okay, we want the dashboard. So this one, I believe we'd set our goal at 12.5. I'm pretty sure. I think we set our goal at 12,500. I kind of thought we'd come away with about 15, and we came out with 17. This was an incredible campaign. This was so exciting. Again, you're gonna see my graph. First day, you want 30%. Yep, 12.5 was my my goal, and we were already at 30% on day 1. And we were not at 50% by day 3. Right? That's how math works. 1, 2, 3. Maple says that's correct. Okay, so I actually was a little tiny bit short of 50% on day 3, but I was close enough. It ended up working out. You'll see we had a really great last 3 days, which in the other campaigns, if you'll remember, they weren't quite this steep in the last 3 days, but that ended up getting us really through. And at this point, you'll also see, so I had 4 books out at this point, so the average pledge was going up because people were a lot of times buying a whole set of 4. So there were more people buying more books than just people buying one singular book at a time, which is why you're going to see the average pledge was starting to go up by this 4th campaign. Anyways, here is, here as you're gonna see, I really went hard on the email list this year. After, book 3, I spent so much time on that Instagram. I mean, a lot of time on Instagram building that. And after it really just didn't do that well. I just kind of pulled away from Instagram, because you'll remember on book 3, on Instagram we had, I think it was 26 sales. You'll see I pulled back really hard from Instagram. We only had 7, but I invested into the email list instead, and wow. Wow, wow, wow. You guys, I can't say enough about having an email list. It's a great way to reach people. That is information that you own. At any point in time, my Instagram account, my Facebook account could get shut down. It's something that could definitely happen, whereas nobody can shut down the email addresses that you have. You have those, unless they unsubscribe, then, that's fine. But overall, look at this. Instagram did almost nothing. My top 3 were from, that's the email list, direct traffic, no refer, because that was just me sending them a link. The second one was still Facebook. Facebook has always come through for me. Really, it does an awesome job. And then the next was internal Kickstarter, which I believe is going to be the search bar. Oh no, actually this is the search bar. So actually, whoa, 16 people I think were actually from Kickstarter. So I ended up making a little chunk of the pie came from Kickstarter, which is pretty cool. That was my 3rd one. And then secretsofthetally.com, that's my website. So actually, wow, that ended up referring quite a few people. Anyways, so I guess, we'll just check on one more, which is Machu and the Great Dragon Escape, because this is very directly relevant to what we're doing, because I'm building the sequel to this, as you guys know. So this one, and like I said, this was so different from my other books that I wasn't expecting it to make 17,000. I was really, really pleased with 11,000. I believe that the goal we put on this was 7, or no, okay, our goal on this was 10. So we ended up making the 10,000 plus 9% extra. And again, this is kind of what you expect to see on the graph. So as you can see, the email list, still killing it. Facebook, still a close second. Those I have found to be just my best sources of getting the word out, getting people who are actually interested in buying and not just looking at fun pictures. And yeah, Instagram, you know what? Instagram is still kicking. I still got 10 people from Instagram, but it has really paid off to switch my focus to having a really good email list over having an amazing Instagram account. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind as you go through these worksheets and as you're looking at, okay, what kind of engagement do I expect from people? Think through, if you were to see each of these things, how would you interact? So if somebody sent you a handwritten letter that said, hey, this book is my live stream, could you please buy a $20 copy? You're probably going to be way more engaged with that than some random person who you follow on TikTok or on Twitter who you just like to see their stuff because it's funny. So before we go ahead and sign off and start doing these worksheets, I want to leave you guys with a couple of tips to remember. So the first one is that most of the work in advertising is done months in advance, not once the campaign is launched. So remember, when we saw those graphs, those first 3 days were really, really powerful. Those are where so much of your engagement is going to be, which means that you need to be marketing before the Kickstarter launches because you want to be at 30% on day 1 and 50% by day 3. Those are the benchmarks that I want to lay out for you guys to have a successful campaign. And then a couple things that I want you guys to avoid is this if you build it, they will come mentality. It's just not how the world works. Unfortunately, if you don't have a loyal following already, you're not going to make 15 million when you throw your books up on Kickstarter. It just unfortunately doesn't work that way. So the people who are going to support you on Kickstarter are going to come from your fan base and from your own marketing efforts. Very, very little of the money that you raise is going to actually come from random people who are just searching through Kickstarter. There will be some, but really not a lot. And then the other thing I want you guys to avoid is don't give up if your numbers aren't matching up right now. If you need 10,000 and you're looking through your platforms and you're like, I'm pretty sure I can raise 3,000. That's not a reason to give up on Kickstarter altogether. It would be a reason though to maybe start looking at ways that you can bring more people onto those platforms. Okay, how can I get more people on my email list? What if I made a free story and started giving it out on different platforms and collected emails? Or maybe you start getting really, really active on places like Instagram or TikTok. You know, like I said, I haven't found them to be the most engaged audience, but I don't know TikTok. I'm kind of assuming it's like Instagram. I could be wrong about that. I do know Book Talk is actually a really, really popular thing. So if you grow a huge following on Book Talk, even if the engagement level is low, if your following's huge, it doesn't matter. You're still going to have a lot of people coming from that who may end up making it so that you make enough money to fund the campaign that you need. So I want you guys today to spend, this is gonna be a decent amount of time. Like I said, this is definitely the most intense day of all 5. And just really take a look at what you think you're gonna need. This is gonna take a lot of research as you look through different printing options and different designers. And remember, tallyinc.com, we offer a lot of services there. Those are the people that I work with in my book publishing and who I recommend to you guys. And then you're also gonna wanna take a really candid look at what kind of followings you have and what you can expect to make based on all of those followers. So thank you so much for being here. I hope that as you're going through this homework, I know it's probably not the most fun work that I've ever given you guys, but I do hope it's very enlightening. And I also hope it's very encouraging to a lot of you and that you see, you know what, I think I can do this. Or the alternative is, you know what, I don't think I can do this yet, but I can start coming up with ideas for how to build my following and maybe I can do it later. And I will just be stuck here for the rest of the day because I can't put Maple down because she's so freaking cute while she's sleeping in my hand here. So I'm just gonna sit here until I starve, I guess. I don't know what else to do. I'm probably just gonna film the day 2 video because I can't put this kitten down. And the minute I get up, all the others are gonna start screaming. So you know what? I'm just gonna turn off the camera and start filming day 2 because I'm stuck. Anyways, have fun with this. Enjoy doing the worksheets, and I will see you guys tomorrow for day 2 of the 5-day Build Your Kickstarter Challenge.